Hi, today I was thinking about, and I thought I could start this talk with like a question. And the question is, what would it be like to relate to life as if you had already lived 1,000 years in your body? And how differently do you think you would relate to relationships? How differently do you think you would relate to goals you have in your life? How differently would you relate to how you speak to others or how you care for your body if you had lived 1,000 years within your body? And when I was thinking about this and kind of like contemplating it, what I got was that we would probably hold our relationships a lot more gently, right? And we would hold them so gently as to not disturb the other person in the relationship. And whether that person chose to leave or to stay, right, they would always have the freedom to do that because we'd be holding our relationships as like with an open palm. And the same with our goals, as we would like hold our goal, we would be incredibly driven and focused and strive towards what we want to create and achieve, but that at the end of the day we wouldn't be so attached to what we were able to accomplish or not accomplish, because those accomplishments wouldn't say anything about our worth and value, right? Our accomplishments are just a reminder of of our capabilities, of what we're of our capabilities to take responsibility and take action in our life. And if we're taking responsibility and action in our life, right, whether we achieve our goals or don't achieve our goals, we've done everything we possibly could to experience the experiences we want to have. And at that point, it doesn't really say anything about who you are or whether you have more value by what you accomplish or don't accomplish, because you've already given your full self to working towards what you wanted to create. And so, and so the 1,000-year-old perspective of us would rest in wholeness, rest in trust of I trust what life is bringing me. I trust what is occurring in my life is either due to the choices and alignments I've had in my past, or is the next level of learning and growth I'm meant to go through to become an even better version of myself, and that I don't need to try and prove myself to life because I've found that I am whole and enough as I am. And so I want to do like a little visualization of us meditating and feeling, either we imagine the 1,000-year-old version of ourselves as just a really old version of us, or we imagine the 1,000-year-old version of ourselves as maybe us in a different lifetime. Maybe we look a little bit more alien. Maybe we're glowing with a bunch of light. But just taking a moment to imagine what the 1,000-year-old version of you would look like. And when you feel like you found an image of that version of yourself, start to feel that version of you start to step in behind you, and then feel it start to merge with your body and merging with all your cells. And feeling this 1,000-year-old version of us specifically influencing how we relate to our relationships, relating to, feel it influencing and changing perceptions we have about ourselves, about life, feel it influencing and helping us have greater care and kindness and respect for ourselves and others, and hold our goals, maybe be more driven and focused towards our goals, but also to hold our goals as our goals aren't saying anything about how much worth and value they are. They're just things we would like to experience. And whatever we end up experiencing, as long as we give our full self to trying to create the life we want to create, says nothing about who we are, and says, and we're given what is actually in alignment for us. And so just taking a moment to feel the 1,000-year-old version of ourselves, merging with ourselves, taking a couple deep breaths, feeling the 1,000-year-old version of ourselves, maybe also upgrading our DNA, upgrading our consciousness in each one of our chakras. We'll slowly start to come out of it and just notice how you feel. You might feel a little bit more relaxed. I'm feeling like a little bit of a sensation in my third eye. And what we recognize about life is that with life, all of creation exists in a moment, and all of creation was created in one moment, and all of creation was destroyed in that same moment. And we merely are having an experience of time so that way we can explore all that is created. But everything that was created throughout all of time exists in one moment. And really, your past life and future lives are all simultaneous. And so that means your most innocent, pure expression of who you are is just pure light, which I would say is always within, we always is always within our body, and is always really what we truly are. And any type of like soul that we think we are, or even the lifetimes that we remember being close to this lifetime and our simultaneous lifetimes, is just the storylines for this lifetime. It's the storylines of what we're meant to experience in this life, and it's like that combined with our past experiences. And so we are the purest expression of consciousness, and we are also the most ancient, experienced, timeless version of an expression of consciousness, all at the same time. And you can think of, I, in this moment where everything's been created, but in this, it means that, and I have access to all the lifetimes I've ever lived, and I also have access to the version of myself that's beyond every lifetime, that's already ascended beyond needing to take physical incarnations. And we could think of this as our ascended master self, or our archangel self, whatever we feel more called to connect with. You have access to that as well. And so really, when we're looking at our life is a question of alignment. And am I aligning myself with greater mastery? Am I aligning myself with greater love, care, kindness, and respect for myself and others? Am I aligning myself with taking greater responsibility for my life and taking actions where I need to take action, and also setting boundaries where I need to set boundaries, and working to be the best version of myself that I can be? And what are the things I do that take away from that? What are the ways that I avoid my feelings, that I numb and check out from my body or my experience? That when I've had a hard day, I reach for a substance, or I reach for an old ex, or I reach to watching, numbing and checking out, even if it's just using a bunch of technology at night. And what are the ways I'm aligned with numbing and checking out that is always feeding the past pain that I've experienced? And what are the ways that I'm aligned with greater compassion and empowerment, and serving my heart's greatest well-being, serving this body's greatest well-being, and cultivating relationships based off of aligning with what I value and aligning with well-being for us and the other person? And what are the ways I orient more towards that? Because your life is about alignment, and the people who who are the most awful on this planet are the people who have been harmonized to the most amount of pain and continue to feed that pain that they were given in their upbringing. And the people that are the most illumined, enlightened, aware are the people who live in service to their heart and the heart of others, and live in service to their body, and being the most kind and respectful, and having like appropriate boundaries with other people's bodies as well. And so we get to choose what kind of experience we have by what we're aligning to, or what ways we feed the the love and the value and the desires of our heart, and what ways do we feed desires that are over chasing consumption, over chasing altered experiences, over chasing pleasure, and maybe even over chasing pain as a way of helping us forget who we are for a second, which just leaves us feeling more numbed, used, broken, like we need to take time to recover, like we need to take, like we, or makes us feel more miserable and negative after those experiences of reaching for substance, reaching for old people that we know aren't good for us. And so when we are willing to align ourselves with the timeless version of ourselves, or with the 1,000-year-old version of ourselves, we learn to be incredibly soft and gentle with ourselves and also with others. We learn that in order for me to get the most out of my life, I have to feel safe in my body, and I'm only going to feel safe in my body if I'm taking good care of myself. And I'm only going to create the life I want to live if I'm being mature and responsible, and making sure that if there's hardships or challenges in my life, whether that's around finances, whether that's around health, whether that's around relationships I have, that I'm willing to address those hardships and challenges and not live in avoidance of them. Like if I need a better job or I need more income, that I'm willing to take action towards making sure that I solve that problem. Or if I'm having problems around health, like doing the best of my ability with the resources that we have available to us to find solutions or find healing for our body that might need help remembering the health that's there. And so recognizing that life is all about alignment, and how I'm choosing day in and day out, how I'm speaking to myself and speaking to others, whether it's anchored in kindness and respect, or anchored in aggression, spitefulness, vengefulness, jealousy, is determining the type of experience I'm going to have. And it's also determining who I am, because we are almost like a mirror, and the choices and how we care for this body reflects the level of consciousness that we are aligning ourselves to, whether we're aligning ourselves to numbingness and altered states that is more unconscious, or whether we're aligning ourselves to greater empowerment, freedom, and timelessness by 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 embodying how we would live as a 1,000-year-old version of ourselves in this moment. And I was listening to someone else channel, and they were talking about, they were channeling the crown chakra dragon, which I understand might sound a little out there, but we'll just go with it for a second. And I totally believe in dragons, just so just so just put that out there. But they're channeling the crown chakra dragon. And the crown chakra dragon was talking about how his consciousness was essentially like the Buddha at the top of a mountain. And that when people came and visited the Buddha at the top of the mountain, the Buddha laughed and rejoiced. And when the people left the Buddha at the top of the mountain, the Buddha laughed and rejoiced. And recognizing that we only are so overly attached to people by how we don't feel whole in ourselves. And if we want to find more deep, meaningful relationships, or we want to not be so hurt by by when people leave is when we aren't putting our value in that relationship. And our relationships sure have value in our life, but when we're grasping onto people and say, I can't not have this person because this person is what gives me love and value, is when we're forming an unhealthy attachment to that person. And when that person won't feel safe to be fully vulnerable and true to themselves because they're afraid of disappointing us and how hurt we will be by them honoring what they need in that moment. Which is like all the ways that we form relationships based on codependency. And when we can align ourselves with, I have value and I love myself no matter who comes and goes in my life, we end up holding our relationships a lot more gently. And we end up, I used to struggle with this a fair amount, and I think I'm growing out of it a fair amount. But I used to think like, oh, other people have to like me. And I probably still feel that to some degree, but I'm working on being a lot more detached on what other people think about me is just how they're viewing me through their lenses of their perception, and actually says nothing about me. And if they have a negative view of me, right, I'm an incredibly loving, kind person. I'm the most loving, kind person that I pretty much know of. I mean, there's people who embody it in different ways that are beautiful, but for me in my life, there isn't a lot more people that are more kind, loving, respectful than me. And so recognizing if we live our life in alignment where we are incredibly kind, awesome, loving, where we take good care of ourselves, and people haven't taken any time to get to know us and have a negative view about us, that's saying all about how they relate to care, kindness, like loving people, and that doesn't really say anything about you. And that was a lesson I learned. I used to try and talk people out of their negative views of me, or try and get someone to like me. And it's like if someone is relating to you from ideas and fantasies, when you push against their ideas and fantasies, you're just going to push them more into the negative ideas and fantasies that they're trying to use to protect themselves. And we really can only have a conversation with someone and change their mind about us when they're anchored in reality. But pretty much anyone that rejects you without really taking any time or interest in getting to know you is always relating to you from fantasy. They aren't relating to you from reality. And so when you try and convince them to like you or try and get them to change their ideas about you, you're just pushing them, you're just pushing against the fantasies that they think protect them. And when they are trying to use fantasies and ideas to protect themselves, and you push against that, they're just going to hold on, they're going to grasp those ideas and fantasies just more tightly, and usually ends up leading to more drama in your life than peace. So at least from my experience. um And so, what I really wanted to talk about with this perspective of aligning ourselves more with our timeless version of ourselves is like talking about dating. And when you're thinking, in what would it be like to relate to life of if I've lived, how differently would we relate to dating if we had been alive for 1,000 years within our body? How differently would we relate to dating if we weren't aware of our maybe biological clock to give birth to a child, and just thought of if I'm meant to be in a relationship, the universe is going to bring me a relationship. And right, really relating to life from our deepest love isn't sought, it's attracted. And right, we learn to handle our deepest loving romantic relationship by how we learn to handle our own deepest love for ourselves. And any type of seeking or searching for a partner is really an avoidance of loving yourself. And you might think, oh, but I want a partner. But why do you want that partner? Oh, because they would make me feel more joy and excited. They would help me feel more loved, or you just can't cuddle with yourself, or I want someone to make me meals. And it's like all of those are ideas pretty much of how someone else is going to be able to meet your needs better than you. And there is maybe a truth of, oh, you can't really cuddle with, like, it doesn't feel the same to cuddle with yourself as it does to cuddle with another person, but there's no reason why you can't cuddle with friends, or to even like express maybe more sensual aspects of yourself in dance with a friend. And often, and the real question I think an 1,000-year-old version of ourselves would ask us is, can you stand for building community in your life rather than seeking a romantic partner? Because community is where we're all going to feel more held and cared for, and it's where actually our needs are really going to be met on a deeper level when we have a community behind us rather than just one person. And it's really what this world is lacking, is we were all fed as children, oh, search and seek a partner because then you'll have someone to care for you. But that when we do that, we're usually neglecting building community in our life, and then we often relate to the people we're attracted to as it's either all or nothing, as in I'm either fully absorbed in this person or I never talk to them again, right? We're either madly in love and going on dates every week, or I'm never going to see this person again. And there's no like in between of, if I enjoy spending time with this person, but I don't feel like they're right for me, it doesn't mean that I can't be friends with them. It doesn't mean that I can't prioritize building community rather than being an all and nothing searching and seeking romantic relationships, and then wondering why I always feel alone, or I don't have a lot of relationships that meet me very deeply. And it's because we're prioritizing searching for romantic relationships over building community. And you're never going to find a balanced, healthy romantic relationship through searching, is the honest truth. And we can say maybe our friends have found relationships like that, but are they happy? Or do they just tell you that they're happy? And do they really feel like and there is some relationships that work on this planet, but it wasn't found by seeking. It was found by resting in, I'm enough as I am. And if the universe wants me to be in a relationship, it will bring me a relationship. Kind of like your best friend. Did you search and seek for your best friend, or did you one day meet someone who just happened to then become your best friend? And what if romantic relationships is the same way? And the question to ask ourselves, if we wish to attract a romantic relationship to us, is to start looking at our life. And it's like, okay, if in order for me to attract my deepest romantic love outside of myself, is I first have to learn how to love myself in that same level of depth, vulnerability, trust, and openness. That, okay, what are the ways that I don't care and love for myself? Right? What are the ways that I reach for substances and reach for substances, reach for adrenaline rushes that actually knock my body out of balance rather than knock my body into greater love and alignment? What are the ways, how clean is the diet I eat? How much do I exercise? And while we should be oriented in being soft and gentle with how we relate to our body, that doesn't mean we can't push ourselves in exercise or have a vigorous workout. Right? The more we push our body, the more our muscles, our tendons, and bones are actually going to get stronger. Or the more we push ourselves in flexibility, the more range of motion we will actually have in our body that actually will prevent our body from being hurt less often. And I've even heard some like longevity doctor talk about that the greatest, like, smoking decreases your like lifespan by like 50%, but being out of shape and having poor cardiovascular decreases, and like eating a poor diet decreases your longevity by like 200 or 400% or something like that. And it's really important to take good care of your body. And then it's like, okay, what about the relationships I have? Are my relationships meeting me how I want to be met, like in friendship? Or am I just spending time with people because I'm afraid of being alone more often? And how do I take responsibility in my life? Am I taking responsibility towards building the career I want to live out? Am I taking responsibility to make time for passion and excitement in my life? Am I taking responsibility to resolve or find solutions or healing for health problems I'm having or for grief I'm experiencing? Or am I avoiding those feelings? Am I avoiding my health problems? Am I avoiding taking responsibility in my life for the life that's I've created with a combination of the choices I've been making in my past experiences and the resources I have access to? And it's working to bring our areas of our life all into balance and harmony and saying, okay, if I want to experience my deepest love, I first have to learn how to love myself, and I have to learn to care for my body as if I'm caring for my soulmate's body, and caring for my body as if it's the most precious thing to me because it's the only thing really keeping you on this planet. And if we're neglecting caring for our body, if we're neglecting how our mind is out of balance, if we're neglecting how our emotions are all over the place and we choose to numb and check out from them rather than face and feel them, we are only going to be forming a relationship to disharmony, dis-ease, and out of balance rather than the love, harmony, and balance we wish to experience, which if we want to find that in a relationship, we have to find that in ourselves first. And the last thing that we can look at is like, what ways do I overconsume things? Do I overconsume technology? Do I overconsume food? Do I overconsume like masturbating and looking at our own patterns of overconsumption? And the ways we overconsume is the ways that we live out of balance, or the ways we're trying to self-soothe our feelings, right, rather than face and feel our feelings. And it's the ways we end up being more rough, more aggressive, and less gentle with ourselves, which then leads us to being that same way with other people. And really, if you want someone to be in the deepest love, if you want to find the deepest love of your life, you have to create a container where they are fully safe to open up to you, and where they don't have to worry about getting bit by the unconscious snakes that you still feed by over-seeking pleasure, or or by over seeking whatever we over seeking altered states, over seeking information that we use as a way of trying to avoid our experience. But the only way you can create a safe experience for you and someone else to fully fall in the deepest love with is by being fully in the experience. And any way we numb, check out, or don't take responsibility for our actions, or don't take responsibility for finding solutions in our life, is what's going to cause disharmony in our greatest loving romantic relationship. And so if we can work to resolve those areas of our life that are problem areas, or the ways we avoid our feelings, the ways we are still addicted to things, or the ways we're not kind to ourselves or to others, or the way we secretly judge ourselves or judge others, is what's going to create the safety for when someone of your greatest love you walks into your life due to your alignment in love, that you guys can actually fall into the greatest love with one another and not have to feel like you have to hold back because the other person isn't safe to lean deeper into love with. And so that's part of it. And then the other part of it is aloneness and learning to really rest in aloneness. Because if we can't rest in aloneness, if we can't rest in aloneness, aloneness is the divine feminine, is it is your love, your care, your nurturing, and the ego that feels like it's dying in aloneness only gets through that experience by us learning how to love and value ourselves. And when we do that and rest in aloneness, we start to really value our time and attention. And then we're not really giving our time and attention to people, to patterns, to choices that aren't worth our time and attention, or even we value ourselves so much that we're willing to align ourselves in balance in the ways we overconsume technology. Like maybe we worked all day on our computer and then we, as rest, we go and watch a movie that night, right? When you're resting in aloneness, you go, okay, I spent all day working on my computer, and rest really for my body would be to go outside, go for a walk, to spend some time stretching and to really reconnect with my body rather than continuing to focus on technology, or even finding balance in learning to listen of if I moved all day, it would probably be good for me to rest or take some time to do something like read a book or be gentle with myself at night. And if I sat all day, that probably means I need to find greater movement in my rest away from work. And so learning to listen to the needs of our body rather than ignoring them is what creates balance. And we learn to value what our body needs by sitting in aloneness. And when you can love your ego through the death it will go through from going sitting in aloneness over and over again, is actually what creates the love within you to then be able to love others deeply. And when we learn to not feed our patterns of unconsciousness that overseek pain, pleasure, or altered states, and we learn to love the one that has cravings and desires that we can't feed, right? What did you just harmonize yourself? Greater love for your hurt parts of yourselves. And when you love those parts is when their patterns soften. And what do they soften into? But wholeness. And when you become whole, what are you aligning yourself with? But the Buddha that laughs whether people come or go, the Buddha that rejoices whether people come and go. And when I first heard that dragon channel, like that man channeling the dragon talking about that, I was like, that is a very, like, that perspective feels very alien. And it's still something, I am not going to be a preacher of I've mastered letting go of people. If anything, I'm like very loyal and I have a really hard time letting go of people. But it's something that I'm working to align myself more into. And it's like, okay, how can I hold my relationships? How can I love my relationships, the people who are with me in this moment, more, and how can I hold them more gently so that if they need to leave or if they want to take a break, that I don't try and grasp them and actually end up suffocating them or actually end up causing more drama in my life than there needs to be. And so when we're resting in aloneness, it's the aloneness that we value, that creates the value for our time, that creates the self-love for ourselves, and it actually what then creates our discernment. And we start to relate to people when we're thinking about dating as in everyone's a friend. Every person that I am, that no matter how hot they are, how interested they are in me, is a friend, right? And if it's meant to be more than friendship, I will know. And if I feel like I don't know, it's probably because it's not meant to be more than a friendship. And we're all okay exploring whether it's meant to, whether exploring it with that, getting to know that person slowly over time as friends and seeing, do I still feel and I don't know, right? And I know people who have heard this teaching, who like other people, and will say, I don't know, but will convince themselves it's a yes because they don't want to be alone. And so we recognize that, and that is really an avoidance of your own aloneness. And that is giving your power away to a relationship rather than learning to love yourself. And you might say, Luke, how do you know that they gave their power away to a relationship and it wasn't actually a yes? And because when you ask someone about the relationship they are in, do they settle and compromise aspects of themselves or what they want for a partner that is in front of them? And that is a great way to tell, okay, am I what we deeply value, if I'm dating this person, are they going to help amplify that or are they going to suffocate that? That's a great question to ask ourselves. Is like, if so for Luke really values spirituality, he values healing, he eats plant-based, and it's like, okay, if someone hasn't done the healing work that Luke does, if someone doesn't regularly focus on aligning themselves with greater divinity, of setting positive intentions in their life, of being the most kind, respectful person they can be, of eating a clean diet, of exercising and taking good care of their body to the best of their ability, right? It's not going to be someone that's in alignment for Luke, for me. Because it would be me having to teach someone how to get to where I'm at, not someone meeting me and amplifying where I'm at into even higher levels of harmony, love, passion. And so we relate to dating of, universe, you gotta fucking work for it. Universe, if you want me to be in a relationship, you better give me someone that I can't say no to, because otherwise my time and attention is more worth my giving it to myself rather than giving it to someone else in a romantic way. And when we can relate to that, our code like life like that, our codependency dies, and we actually start to find wholeness, and we actually start to find deeper friendships too, because we're not trying to date or have sex with all our friends that might be attracted or might even be mildly interested in us, right? And when we let go of our attachment to dating and having sex with people who really are at the deepest level are just meant to be friends in our life, it actually creates greater safety in those relationships, which allows those relationships to open up more. And we actually find deeper depth and vulnerability in our community. And rather than we rather than we spend some time with some person and it falls apart and then we never talk to that person again. And really, what is that but a ruined friendship? And so when you can I'm settling in aloneness is what's going to kill your codependency. It's also what's going to kill your people pleasing tendencies. It's what's going to sharpen your discernment, and you're going to start to get intuitive hits of who's actually like aligned for you to get to know in more of a romantic way, or who can't meet you. And most of your intuitive hits are going to be, this person isn't going to be able to meet me different, because 99% of the people we meet are parts of our community members or our friends. They aren't romantic partners. And we only feel like life is a buffet of romantic partners when we're constantly seeking validation in finding a romantic partner, or seeking validation of, when someone chooses me to have sex, I have worth and value. But those are ideas, that's not reality. And really, you're going to have way more worth and value if you can have healthy boundaries in your life and are going to live in, I'm not going to put someone's heart in a position where they could be heartbroken when I know it's not going to work in a long-term relationship, or even when I feel uncertain about it working in a long-term relationship. Because if we're feeling an I don't know when we're getting to know someone as a friend that we secretly hope is going to be more than friends, the I don't know is saying it's a no that you're doubting. It's a no that you're going, I want this to work. And I hear and I don't know saying you are doubting why it won't work. And some romantic relationships that are out of alignment might work better than others. And it doesn't mean, we don't have to choose this perspective. This is just the perspective I live my life by. And it's the perspective I've found to bring me incredible levels of peace and incredible levels of healing towards my own codependency. And it really, in my life, it really has helped open up greater depth in friendship and create greater safety when I am connecting with people because I'm no longer living in a mindset, which I definitely did live in the past a little, of constantly searching and seeking for someone trying to fill the void of how I didn't feel enough. And really it can be like it's like subtle pattern of overconsumption that leads people to feeling used, taken advantage of, or then questioning how did they not know better in relationships. And I've talked about this before of like I haven't really dated or really even gone all the way with someone like in sex. So you have to take this from I'm teaching from my alignment. I'm teaching from what the relationships I've witnessed around me. And I'm teaching from the perspective that works well with me, but you recognize that if you settle in your aloneness, you're going to be alone for a while. But are you worth the journey of really learning how to love yourself? Or do you feel like you're only going to find that love when you find a romantic partner? And what perspective is going to create greater harmony and peace in your life? And if you can learn, and if you actually stop chasing a partner, it's actually what gives way more weight to your yes. That when you gave someone a yes in dating someone, right, it has a lot more meaning when you say, I'm only going to date someone if I can't say, it's literally someone that I could not imagine not dating or not going or not exploring that with because of how amazing or how amplifying they are for my greatest passions, for our greatest for my greatest love and harmony. And when you find a person like that, it isn't about you anymore, but it's about us. And and when you meet them, it's something you can feel, right? Because the universe wouldn't let you miss your deepest love. And we learn that when we allow ourselves to love ourselves in our aloneness, it creates the wholeness to trust life. And we trust that life will bring me what I need when I need it. And if a relationship isn't here yet, I don't need to go out searching it, just like how I didn't search for my best friend, right? When I'm meant to find a best friend relationship, when I'm meant to find a romantic relationship, it will be brought. And that doesn't mean I can't get to know people. That doesn't mean that I can't be curious or interested in others. Doesn't mean I can't put myself out there or go to a bunch of community events where I have the opportunity to meet new people. But recognize relating to people as everyone's a friend. And if it's really meant to be more than a friendship, I will know. And it will be continually confirmed that it's more than a friendship as I get to know them and see, wow, they're meeting me exactly how I'd want to be met. And they're only helping deepen what I'm passionate about rather than dampen it, or I feel like I have to settle and compromise aspects of myself in order for this relationship to work. And so, can we learn to love ourselves and love ourselves fiercely and love ourselves deeply and not hold back at loving ourselves and not feel like my goals, what I achieve in my life, what and who is interested in me says anything about me, right? And when we learn to love ourselves and we value our time and attention, we're going to become an awesome human that does incredible things with their life just from orienting in that perspective. And no person is, when you fully love yourself, how they see you says anything about you. And no person is going to be able to 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 define your value because you found the value in yourself, and everything else outside of that is bonus. And it's why the Buddha laughs when people come and rejoices and laughs and rejoices when people leave, because everything outside of the Buddha is just bonus for the Buddha to experience. And when we learn to be care for ourselves as if we're caring for our soulmate's body that we happen to be inhabiting, is when we start to learn the self-care and self-love that's going to be able to handle our deepest love. And it actually is when we start to become discerning of, if there, it's not worth the heartbreak for me to give my romantic time and attention to someone else, that really have to settle or compromise aspects of myself, or they have to catch up in certain ways of self-healing or how they care for their body in order to meet me, right? Someone playing catch up isn't worth your time and attention. What's worth your time and attention is someone meeting you on the deepest level possible. And if they are not there yet, they're probably someone who's meant to be a friend, someone meant to be part of your community, someone maybe to cuddle with, someone maybe to explore sensual dances with. But to have boundaries, because boundaries is actually what creates the safety of your heart to give you more and more power, love, and wholeness. So I hope that helps. Thank you for listening, and I hope you guys have a good night.